According to Wikipedia, so it must be true, there are over 30 12-step groups. All of them appear to have the same 12 steps that they work on. They all have a first step that says, admitted we were powerless over, fill in the blank, and that our lives have become unmanageable. If you can just change one word from one step and it be applicable to all these different addictions, there has to be a deeper cause underneath that. So I'd like to explore that today. When I look at the book of Genesis, Genesis 3, we see the fall. Adam and Eve are created in a state of right relationship with self, with God, with neighbor. What happens is after the original sin, after they sort of say to God, we see a couple things happen immediately. First, they notice they're naked. Their relationship with themselves is fractured. Next, we're told that when God comes to see them, they hide. Fear enters into the human relationship with God, on our part, not God's part. And then finally, we see the relationship between Adam and Eve starts to get a little bit, shall we say, tense. So what happens when we look at these three relationships in our lives, with self, with God, with neighbor, when those are broken, we act out in different ways to self-medicate. That could be with food, that could be with drink, drugs, sex, or any of those 30 plus addictions that Wikipedia likes to give to us. So the answer is, if you're struggling with something in your life, I always tell people, look at your relationships. What's your relationship with God look like? What's your relationship with self look like? What's your relationship with your neighbor look like? Whether that be your spouse, your family, co-workers. Because if one of those or more of those relationships are not in, we're going to look for something to medicate ourselves, something to soothe that pain. The 12 steps teach us something very important, that we will grab onto something. But as we continue down those steps, the third step says that we turn our will and our lives over to God. We see that God is the answer. So if you're struggling with anything in your life, again, look at those relationships. What's your relationship with God look like? What's your relationship with self look like? What's your relationship with neighbor look like? Get those in order, and all the other symptoms, with all those steps that will show us those symptoms will diminish or disappear. I'm Father Jerome Cudden, and I'm the pastor of St. Dominic's Church in Benicia, California. God bless you, and have a great weekend.